Multiple viewpoints on subscriptions on the Mac Show. This is MacVoices. Today's edition of MacVoices is brought to you by the MacVoices Dispatch, our weekly newsletter. Visit macvoices.com/newsletter today, sign up, and stay up to date. Welcome to MacVoices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, this is another cross-post show from the Mac Show on the British Tech Network. Now, I want to be clear, I'm not going to make this a regular thing, but during this year's Summer of Fun series on the Mac Show, we've hit on a couple topics that I felt were really important. The first one, as you probably know from the posting previous to this, is Apple Wearables with Jeff Gamet. This show and the next one, because we're going to split this into two parts, focus on the question of subscriptions. Now, I know you probably already have very strong feelings about subscriptions, but this discussion was so good and so in-depth, and it hit the topic from both the standpoint of users and developers. And hopefully it will make you a little better informed, give you a better idea about why so many subscriptions are popping up in software that you love. And again, I know we're not trying to change your opinions here. We're just trying to make you informed and make you understand a little bit. So again, this will be split in two pieces, today's and tomorrow's shows. And if you have thoughts, please drop me an email, chuck@macvoices.com. I'd love to hear what you think after hearing this. Does it change your mind? Do you at least understand, even if you don't like it? Please let me know. With that, let's go to the Mac Show on the British Tech Network.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Mac Show. I'm Jeff Gamet, your interim host, sitting in for Ewan Rankin. And I screwed up the title. I should have said, hello, everyone, and welcome to the Mac Show Summer of Fun edition. I'm Jeff Gamet. I'm your interim host, sitting in for Ewan Rankin. See, that time I got it. Go me. All right. Anyhow, I'm here with an amazingly tolerant and patient panel today because, I mean, they're here with me, so how could they not be tolerant and patient? Or gluttons for punishment. Potato. Anyhow, Dave, how are you doing?
I am doing great. Nice day off today, and what a way to spend it with you guys being here, and looking forward to talking about our stuff here today and getting caught up with you guys.
You're a glutton for punishment, right? That's why you're spending your day off with us. No, I'm kidding.
I mean, that explains so much. Yep.
I'll be doing 2 podcasts today, so I'm taking my day off really strong here. So,
yeah, no kidding.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. All right. Well, yeah, another glutton for punishment. Chuck, how are you?
Yes, that's me. I'm a glutton. I'm good, Jeff. I missed you guys last week. It's good to be back.
It's great to see you, and I can say from personal experience, Chuck really is a glutton for punishment because when we're at events together, we hang out together. Chuck doesn't have to do that, and yet he does.
Hey, I enjoy seeing what you're going to do next, Jeff. It's a constant state of surprise.
For me too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's great to have you back. And
appreciate it.
Patrice, how are you?
I'm doing well as well. We talked in the pre-show a little bit about the Taylor Swift concert here in Vienna, and like the cancellation. I think it's gone around the world. Everybody knows about it, but yeah, I'm just happy everybody's safe, and there's a really interesting group of people right now in Vienna, which is cool. That's my type of people. No, I'm good. It's just been a very busy day. Like, I cannot lie. I had like a meeting like until right after, actually a couple of minutes even after I was supposed to join here. So it's been a long day.
Who you are?
No, I told them I have to leave at 5, but it's okay. Like, we can do a meeting. They asked. I was like, yes. It was important that we do it today, so we did. It was a good meeting. So it was one person. It wasn't even a big meeting.
Okay, so productive.
Oh, good. Very productive, very good. Yeah, we had a meeting this morning with our previous CEO, and he is our founder, like retired now. but still involved in a lot of day-to-day things. And that was also an interesting meeting, but like that's not the meeting you want on a Friday at 9 a.m. So
Yeah.
kind of, but it was good. Like, so I'm not complaining. It was actually a good meeting.
Okay.
But those kind of like board level meetings can go either way sometimes, so you don't know what you're getting into.
It's true. Well, I'm glad that you didn't walk away from it flipping tables and throwing bricks through windows.
No, I would do that. I would be like, okay, I'm out. That would be my answer probably.
Patrice's version of flipping tables.
Yeah.
All right, I'm out, and
Yeah.
walk away.
Exactly. No, but it's all good. No, it's good. It was actually a good meeting, and good to see him also as well. I've worked with him over the years many times, so happy to not have to work with on that level too often. But when we do have something, it's always pleasant. So can't complain.
Nice. Well, there's so many things I could complain about, but why? Because I'm here with,
but why?
all three of
You're not in Germany.
Right. I'm not in Germany. Therefore, complaining,
you can't complain.
It's not a sport here. Yeah. Hey, I said it's summer of fun. And for those of you that are playing along at home but don't know what that means, during the summer, when news typically is slower, we, instead of just taking a break like we used to and not do shows for several weeks, Patrice came up with the absolutely brilliant idea of picking some other topic, and we'll just have a random discussion and just hang out and have fun. Which, when I say it that way, it kind of sounds like what we do anyhow, but it's different.
It's different. I mean, usually we have a format and we have some like things that we do and how we do things, whatever, and some are fun, anything goes.
Right. And Chuck, because he is completely off the hook, absolutely out of control, came up with today's idea for discussion, which is subscription services. Why do they make sense or not? And of course, Chuck, you're the kind of person that would bring this idea to the table because it's a legit discussion, but also has the potential to go completely sideways.
Thank you, I think.
It's definitely a compliment all the way around.
Okay, well, I'll take it as such then. Thank you.
Yeah. So, subscription services, I'm assuming, but I don't think we have to stay limited to what I'm assuming. We're talking about software, apps as subscriptions, but I suppose it could be any kind of subscription, right?
Well, it's Jeff. It's interesting that you pulled this out at this particular time, because I've been off for a little while. But apparently, while I was gone, there was a big kerfuffle going on about Logitech possibly doing a subscription for a mouse. And now, to be very clear, before somebody freaks out, they're not doing it. They've taken great pains. In fact, the last thing I heard was that they allegedly weren't even sure where this whole thing came from. But bottom line is that that starts to tread in a whole different direction, and we can go that direction if anybody wants to. But you're right. Up to this point, we're all seeing subscriptions for software and services, and I guess this panel would probably limit it to software as part of the discussion.
Yeah, because I think we should limit it because there's different arguments to be made depending on what it is. I think there's different businesses and business models behind it. So I think software subscriptions is probably more the thing we are concerned about most of the time. I don't know if you're concerned about the subscription for your heated seats in your car or something.
Well, that is a whole nother discussion.
Exactly. Yeah, app
Yeah.
subscription. Yeah, that's an interesting thing. It's an interesting trend because didn't used to have that in that sense, right? I mean, back in the day, there was shareware and whatever, but it was usually most of the time it was one-time payment, and then maybe every couple of years you would buy a new version or buy an upgrade or anything like that. Especially when you had to buy a CD or DVD or disc or tape, depending on how far back you go, or magazine to tape it off of to even get the version, get the update. So I think that was a different time, but these days, sometimes feels like everything is going subscription, and I
Patrice,
think there are good reasons.
yeah, and Patrice, you bring up an interesting point that delivering the software now has completely changed from those old days when the publisher had to ship a CD or go farther back, a disc or something. Now and also there was one particular incident involving, I don't know if anybody remembers Adobe Go Live.
Oh yeah.
When
I remember when it was Go Live Cyber Studio.
Yep. But
Yeah.
they had made it free to download, and so at the time that was borderline state of the art software, and so everybody jumped on it, and then the individual who offered it for free, and it was not pirated, by the way, absolutely not. It was completely legit. Ended up with let's just say a substantial bandwidth bill. And so,
yes,
that became a bit of an issue. But now, now you don't even think about it. I open my phone and I see, okay, you have 57 new updates to your installed apps. Okay, hit go and don't even think about it.
Yeah, there's still a substantial bandwidth bill involved in that, but you're not seeing it. Apple is paying for it somehow.
Right.
I always think when I think about.
None of us blinked when Chuck said, and I see I have 57 updates.
That's normal. Every time I open the app, I have 50, 60, 70. And I can do it every day and I have 50, 60, 70.
I check every day and it's ridiculous.
It's just normal. Yeah.
I'm sorry, Patrice, I interrupted you.
No, that's fine. It was a really good point. It's like the bandwidth is. I think about that every time when we, right now in this cycle we're in, where all the betas are coming out, and they're quite, if you look at it, they're really big, and the new versions are coming out, and they will be big updates. And I always think about how much data is flowing, just that OS update, and the billion of devices that get it. How much data that is in a couple of days. It's crazy. It's 7-8 gigs per device and then let's say within a week, because everybody seems to update within week 2, maybe 3. We see that in statistics. That's a ridiculous amount of data, and especially with the beta cycle right now, that's less people because it's not not everybody is getting it yet. But there's every 2 weeks a new version, and sometimes they are also a couple of gigabytes big. So as I said, it adds up, and Apple pays for that. They pay for the CDN, they pay for the bandwidth, they do pay for it, but it's so cheap that it's still worth it for Apple.
Excuse me. I'm assuming it's still significantly cheaper than pressing CDs or DVDs and making packaging and
cheaper, easier.
Oh my God, yeah.
If something is wrong, with the update, they can pull it at any point. Try doing that with a DVD you've shipped out. All you can do is send another message and say, "Hey, please don't use this DVD," and then hope that people actually see it. That's the best you can do.
Or ship out stickers that retailers have to put on the boxes.
Oh yes.
Say, download the update.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Yeah. No, that's exactly it.
Well, and to sorry if I'm going to alienate any U.S. Postal Service listeners, but the rate of successful deliveries, on-time deliveries, has really become terrifying.
Yeah.
And so and I've, in fact, just this last week I heard a couple stories about things that were received literally months later. And so, you start to wonder why does anybody like a postage stamp anymore? If unless you just absolutely have to. So,
but people still do.
Yeah, but to stay with the with the topic here, I mean those are all factors that have changed for developers and their ability to deliver rapid updates as well. And don't forget about the need to deliver rapid updates, not just for bug fixes, but for security purposes.
Yeah, I think it's kind of two-pronged or two-sided part of that story. One is what you said, the security updates, in general providing value over time and not waiting for the big bang updates anymore. But that's the other part, is that software has become more and more complex. And Apple ran into that a couple of years ago, where they were completely failing at doing beta releases and so on. And failing, I mean, in the sense of that they were broken and they broke everything and so on, and they were just too complex, too many changes at once, so nothing was working. And now we have the kind of yearly release cycle, and you see that in software a lot, that nowadays, I mean, Brett Terpstra will push out new changes all the time because he has the subscription revenue, and it's easier to do that. Like, do smaller updates when, like, do a feature, push it out, do a feature, push it out, instead of having the big bang where it's like, oh, I'm selling version 2, and now it has these 10,000 features that I've built, and all of them have to work, and all of them are new, and I don't know if they all work properly together. I've spent months testing it, and I still don't know. Because it's just too many things that happen at once. And Adobe ran into that. Adobe is not doing it. Like, basically, that's the other aspect of it. That's just software has become more and more complex. I see it every day.
But I feel like that also factors into this discussion that, you want the latest and greatest, and you need those bug fixes. And because we're so dependent on our tools now, they need to be kept up to date. And the only way a developer can do that, to keep a cash flow going, just like anybody that works for anyone else, you're paid probably on a bi-weekly basis. So
monthly if you're in Europe.
Or monthly if you're in Europe. And so, but at the end of the day, you count on that cash flow coming in to pay your bills. And for the developer who says, I sell it once, and then I don't get anything for 6 months, a year, 2 years, until I either do a major update or a major revision change. Well, that's really tough. In some ways, if you look back, it's kind of amazing that anybody was able to live like that.
Yeah, I mean, think about the fact that shareware, the word shareware, that was always the big buzz in the 80s and the 90s. Do you ever hear? I hardly ever hear about shareware anymore. I mean, because
it does exist still.
It exists, but I don't think it isn't a good model anymore, because I mean, at first I was very resistant to subscriptions for software, but I come to realize, to get them to be much better at developments and things like that, keeping the application fresh, and then coming up with new applications.
But it depends, right? Because it depends on what is the application. There's apps where you need the security updates, you need the new features, you want it to continue. I don't know, social media app or something. But there's other apps, like, I would say sometimes in the productivity category, where I think maybe we don't need that all the time. Maybe it is fine if it works now and there is nothing to add to it. It works, it does the job. There's no significant bugs. Maybe shareware or one-time payment is totally fine, and that's it. If there is not a significant push for on the developer side to change it, to add to it, to keep working at it, they basically built it, and some market module here and there, maybe a bug fix, but that's it. Then that might be fine to just do shareware or a one-time payment and say, okay, it's done. Like, it's also okay. Like, I wouldn't say it's dead. It just depends really on the app. Like I'm
Yeah, it
just
does.
thinking, like there's the audio editor that I use for the podcast, Reaper. That's a one-time payment.
Right.
I don't expect any extra features. It does exactly what I need. It works. It's not the most beautiful app. It's probably a couple of years old from the UI perspective. Actually, probably more like 10. Feels like, but I don't care. It gets the
Right.
job done. It does exactly what I need. I understand it. It works. And as long as that keeps going, yeah, they might have to invest a little bit in new OS versions and so on. Maybe they will like ask for some extra money or have some like a new version at some point to do that. I'm okay with that. Like Parallels does that all the time. Actually, they have switched to subscription, but they used to do that. Every year there would be a new release of Parallels, new payment. You could go and upgrade, but that was basically their thing. Yeah, and if you stayed on the OS version that you had because it works, then you didn't have to pay for it. It works, it runs, it's fine, no need to change. And that's okay.
I was a little different with Parallels only because I like Parallels a lot and I want to continue to see how they evolve. So, and then we're geeks here, want to do that stuff. So I subscribe to Parallels and I upgrade every year. I've probably had every version of Parallels since going back to version 5. I mean, it's crazy how long I've been doing that. But I was going to give a comparison. You know, like Rogue Amoeba is a good example of software. A lot of times they have amazing applications as we all know. That you buy it once and you could go a couple years before you have to actually pay for an upgrade. I mean, they don't do it very often, which is their model seems to work pretty well. And they're attracting more people. Even like Audio Hijack and Loopback and a lot of their applications. Go on the other side of the spectrum, Adobe. Adobe is notorious with the ungodly high prices for their subscriptions to Creative Cloud. And I understand the product is high end. The product is very, very out in that niche market, but it's not affordable for your small time person who wants to be creative. A lot of times
it's more affordable now. That's the thing with Adobe. I mean, they're a very professional tool. They used to cost, I don't remember, $1,000 a year or something, or 2 years, every 2. Like not everybody would update every year, but let's say you did it every year. That was like 1,000 or 1,500. I don't remember, depending on how big the suite was you bought.
Yeah, it was a lot of money.
That was not affordable for anybody, for like anybody other than business. So if you're in a business where you need that, okay, and if your business is also big enough, it's not just a really small business where you just like it's not affordable even for that. You paid that, but nobody else could. With the monthly payments, it's a little bit easier because you're basically paying a little bit every time.
And
so
it's actually, if you decide you want to stop for a while, you can stop and then you can go back.
Yes.
But going back to big companies, I mean, I see an experience right away. You can be the really large company, but even large companies are scrutinizing that cost too. I mean, they're on average, if you want the full Creative Cloud suite, it's like still $700-800 per person per year.
Yeah. But that's because the big company is looking at it from what does it cost me in my budget in this year?
Right.
And is that does that make sense for what I get out of it? So that's a different scrutiny and it's different level of looking at it. They're not buying it just because they like it.
But Patrice, to restate kind of what you said in a little bit from a little bit different angle, and somebody sit down because I'm going to defend Adobe here a little bit. The Adobe produces professional level tools, okay?
Yes.
And that's something that we've all struggled with because we all want to believe, well, I'm a professional, or at worst, I'm a semi-professional. The fact is we're not, okay? And fortunately, there are plenty of great options out there that can do up to 85, 90%, maybe even a little higher percentage of what the Adobe products can do. But, but people use Adobe products to make money. They don't just do the little stuff. They do it to make money. And that's a differentiation.
Yeah, I'm going to quote Doc Rock here. He said, like, the Adobe suite is simply priced into my rate.
Yes, exactly.
Like, I have a couple of jobs and it's paid for. He's a professional. He uses it professionally. It's not he's not even thinking about that. It is the right tool for his job and it's just priced in, done.
But okay, so I want to take that and jump to another category that I think is the way I evaluate things, because I'm not a professional, so I don't need the Adobe Creative Suite. Yeah. Are there things in there I would love to play with? Absolutely. There are even a couple things that I haven't found a good replacement for. So, but it's not, I'm doing that cost benefit thing. Now,
Same.
let's go to the fact that those professionals use that software a healthy percentage of their working day. That's kind of the way that I personally evaluate subscriptions. That if I have something that I use on a regular basis, and frankly, my favorite example of this is Text Expander. I don't use it a couple times a week or a day. I use it a few times an hour. That is well worth the subscription to not only keep it secure, but most importantly, to keep it updated, to have the bug fixes, so that when I go to expand a snippet, that I know it's going to work. And so,
and that's true.
Yeah, well, you gotta look at that. How frequently do you use it, as to and then start trying to do the math. And is it worth 20 cents a day, or $1? Is it worth $1 a day?
Yeah, but that's you're absolutely right. Like we were talking about Adobe. From my perspective, the best audio editor for podcasts that I have ever used is Adobe Audition. I do not own it. I do not use it. Why? I'm not doing it enough. If I was doing it all the time, if I had a bunch of podcasts I was constantly editing, I would gladly pay the subscription fee for it. But I don't need it, so I found a different solution that works, and that's cheaper, simply, but gets the job done. It's not as fancy, it's not as nice, it doesn't have all the bells and whistles I would maybe want to, but it gets the job done. So that's the difference. You're absolutely right. And you have to evaluate that. Text Expander is a good example. I am not paying for it because I just realized I'm not using it a lot, and there's a free alternative that I'm using that works reasonably well for the things I need. If I ever got to the point where that wasn't going the way I wanted, and it was like I was using it more and it's just not there, then I would switch to Text Expander again. Like, not a problem, but you have to evaluate it. I honestly, I also want to talk a little bit about the opposite side. Like, why do companies decide to go subscription? Because it's always like people are complaining about it. It's like, oh, they're greedy and they want all my money and I can't pay for 1 million subscriptions. And yes, that sometimes maybe is true.
All the apps that I want because I have to budget my subscriptions and
and that might be true in some cases. Yes, some companies do it because they can make more money that way and they just want more. That does exist. Sometimes they might overcharge for the thing. Like they say, oh, our app is worth $10. That's their choice. Even if you say, for me, it's only worth $1 a month. That's basically what you said, Jack. Like, you have to evaluate how much are you willing to pay for it, basically. How much is it worth to you? So overcharging more, in a sense, from the person who then gets charged. Like, the company might be totally worth $10 a month and features and whatever, but what you are using is only $1. Then your decision.
That's why I stopped using Creative Cloud.
I
mean, I was using Photoshop all the time, Illustrator a lot, InDesign a little bit less. But I realized for the types of tasks that I was doing and how often I needed to do things, the cost benefit didn't fit. So I ended up switching to the Affinity Suite, and the cost benefit fits for me there. But it also addressed, or it made clear to me that there's another issue that people need to look at with software like this. There's all these features you want. Okay, great. Are those the features you're using? And what I found was that when I switched to Affinity Photo instead of Photoshop, I'm like, well, man, there's this tool and this tool and this tool, and I'm not going to have them. And as I was working, I realized, well, for all of them except one, it didn't matter because I wasn't actually using those tools anyhow.
Yes. Yeah, or you're using them, whatever, once a year for like one thing, one time, just because you have it and you could, but if you didn't have it, it wouldn't matter. You would just not do it.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, that's the same argument as like, I have to buy the biggest car I can find because once a year I take a road trip somewhere, or once every 5 years I take a road trip somewhere. It's like maybe then you don't need a big car. Just rent a big car when you need it.
Right.
You don't have to drive a truck around just because every 5 years you move.
Mhm.
So let's bifurcate this discussion into two areas. We have
Mhm.
the user area and we have the developer area.
Yeah.
And the perspectives, and Patrice, you just brought it up. Why do companies do this? Some of them, yes, they want to try to maximize. No, scratch that. Everybody wants to try to maximize the revenue. You can't blame them for that because we
Not
do the
everybody.
same
There's
thing.
companies who are genuinely not super interested in that. As long as it's okay and they make enough money, they're fine. Like not
Okay.
always about the revenue.
Okay,
There's
I'll go with
companies
that.
like that.
I'll go with that.
Small usually, but they do exist.
Yeah, but they are looking for that. Like we started out the conversation, they're looking for that constant or relatively predictable revenue stream. Now, it's entirely possible that something could go haywire, and everybody says, "Oh my God, this app is now terrible," and we're unsubscribing. And so
that can happen. That's a risk.
Yeah, but the likelihood is that they are going to have that income on a pretty regular basis. So that's a simple reason as to why. I mean, if I were a developer, I'd be looking at that if it were my sole source of income, instead of trying to wait 6 weeks, 6 months, a year, 2 years to get another hit to my bank account.
Mm-hmm.
I can add a little bit more to that because there's kind of let's say two models for that. If you're on the one-time payment plan path with your app or with your service, then what you need is you might need the every couple of years upgrade or whatever the time frame is, and you have to make sure so that you have constantly money. You have to make sure that you're constantly acquiring new customers or customers are coming back. I mean, sometimes you have churn and then they come back and pay again after a couple of years or something. So but in order to have, let's say, a somewhat reliable flow of money over time, you need to basically acquire new customers all the time. And of course, we can imagine that doesn't work infinitely, because at some point you have reached whoever you can reach in your target audience, and then what you can do is expand and open up new opportunities for new audiences that you could address. Or you have to simply, you don't get the money anymore until you do an upgrade or whatever. This is the one model, and that works for some, as we just addressed. But as you said, it has the downside. You have to basically constantly look at how can I get more users? How can I attract more users? What can I maybe add that would attract more users to my platform? How can I advertise to get more users on it or whatever? You're basically constantly looking for the new one, and the old people that already pay, people who already paid, are kind of not super important to you. At least not as important as finding new ones, because the new ones is where you get the money for the next paycheck. Or for the next version that you're building. I can see it this way as well. Like the next version, I want to build the next big release. I need to basically upfront invest money to build it, and then I can later get it back. So you need to have that money. So that is a challenge. So, and you see that sometimes where companies simply ignore the existing customer base because they say, well, they've already paid, so I don't care. Good companies don't do that because they know that those customers, one, will advertise for you and they will come back, and later on you might need them for an upgrade that they want to have them pay for it, and what an extra service and whatever. There's a million reasons to do that, but some companies just ignore it and say, don't care, you paid, done, here's the app, good luck, don't call me for anything, basically. That's the one side. The subscription side is the difference, because you basically you like the acquisition of an individual customer is important, but you also want to keep them long term. So you're looking more, how can I how can I get more customers on board, because that's good, because you're opening up new streams that can come in, and more money that can come in a constant basis, and maybe you have some churn, so people leave, and you have to supplement that again so that you're basically keeping it even. But you also have to make sure that the customers you have are happy, that they get the features they want, that they get the support they want, that the stuff keeps working, and so on, which is a different challenge. Because now you have to make sure that what you're doing is always good and always works and always brings the value. And as you said, something might change, and then they're leaving. Everybody's like, oh, this is a terrible company. It broke in the new OS version, and now I'm unsubscribing. Then you have no money.
Then you have no money.
Yeah.
That's
So it's a different problem.
Never a good thing. That wraps up the first part of our discussion on subscriptions on the Mac Show on the British Tech Network. Look for the next part in the next edition of Mac Voices, which should be published depending on when you're listening to this, either tomorrow or it will be next in line in the feed. Meanwhile, visit BritishTechNetwork.com to check out all the great content they produce, because they are a terrific source of information that is not US-based. I'm Chuck Joyner. I'll see you next time on Mac Voices. Thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with Mac Voices magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices, or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you Mac Voices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CashFly at cashfly.com.